Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Withered Flowers, the podcast where we talk everything about the explosive manhwa Tears on a Withered Flower by author Gainem. I am Madam Void, and on the panel with me tonight are Auntie Laura, Digital Girl, and the Study Bunny. So today we're going to discuss the events of chapter 63, and I guess kind of what we were talking about previously, the reception within the fandom, where it looks like there are two factions that are growing right now. One based on story, the other based on what's revealed and what still isn't revealed. So I'm really interested in hearing what you guys' thoughts are on that.
Well, I will say that I am really happy with where the story is going right now. And I'm sorry, this is Auntie Laura, by the way. Um, so I kind of feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, I kind of feel like we've had like peaks and valleys. Like, I feel like we just got over a peak and we're heading into a valley, like a small one, but I feel like we're going back up. I feel like we had that release of um, pressure from when Minchol finally found out that Nahesu is not his woman anymore, and I feel like now we're back to that pressure building up. What do you guys think?
I do think that we're leading. Hi, everyone. This is Digital Girl. I agree with you, Auntie Laura. I do think that we're leading up to another peak. Um, the way that the chapter started off was for me was pretty sweet, despite there being a stalker there, because Teha got something that he really needed from Nahe. So even if she inadvertently admitted to a stranger that she's seeing him. So I do think that there's things happening that's going to lead up to I guess a crash of sorts that I have to brace myself for. But I really do like how the pace of the story is going right now. And I see all of those loose ends with other characters coming through and momentum being gained, which I really do appreciate.
So, what about you, Study Bunny? Like, how do you feel about how this chapter, or not the chapter, but how the story is progressing so far?
I'm not. Hi, everybody. I'm the Study Bunny. I'm not really surprised by like the progression of the story. Just because we've been needing to focus on Teja's side of things for a very long time. I know we've had a couple comments within the fandom that it's like, oh, it feels like Teja's becoming more of the protagonist than Naheso is, but in reality, they're both the protagonists within the story. One of the criticisms about Biom Teja's character is that we know close to next to nothing about him, and this always causes him to become mischaracterized as either a master manipulator or a red flag or anything like that, when in reality he's not. He's pretty insecure. A lot of the things that he has gone through is because of trauma and stuff like that. So it is nice, honestly, as the study bunny. I love Beyond Family Lore chapters 90 times more than visual focused chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really want to know what's going on with that company. And that's kind of the reason why chapter 51 is still one of my favorite chapters.
I
Yeah.
think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback on that a little bit because there I hate the criticism that either he's going down the wrong path or the author is taking him in the wrong direction with him being a little bit more violent. And I think a lot of readers are forgetting that this is someone who grew up on the other side of violence. And now that he's an adult, he's kind of taking the reins himself. And we're seeing more of what his family does in the shadows. We've always gotten like little bits and pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
we can only speculate like, oh, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? Is he a part of the mafia? All of these other, theories that are coming up, but now we finally have confirmation. Yeah, this
Mhm.
legal business that the Bohm family has is almost a front. What they're doing in the shadows that's the real story. And I'm really interested in seeing more of that.
I actually want to pick up from where Madam Void was talking about. Gainim has never hidden the fact that Teha is first a yandere, but secondly, a very scary character. And
Mm-hmm.
this was established within, actually very early within the story.
Mm-hmm.
In chapter
Very much
20,
so.
in chapter 7, this is kind of, actually no, chapter 6, we got the first example of the fact that Teha does have a penchant for violence. And then this was shown again very heavily in chapter 22 with the whole debacle with Dongwook and Duheiji. And the fact that Teha literally used the cigarette Dongwook was using to burn his hand. So it's not been the first or nor the last time that was shown that like Gainim has demonstrated that Teha has a darker side. So if anybody is saying that, oh yeah, no, the author is taking him in the wrong direction, unfortunately, we have to explore more of Tehan's darker side as an audience before we actually see him go through progression of him healing from his own trauma. Because if we don't understand the source of the trauma, then how are we going to actually be able to fix it? It doesn't do
Mhm.
us a fair of us as anybody in the audience if we kind of just say, "Oh yeah, the trauma is just there. It's just there now. Can we just like go through the healing arc now?" That is going to make his character just feel like an extension. So a lot of like, for example, a lot of readers on Xianghang Shu, his name is still translated to Rose, even though he has a full name, Teha, because some people just kind of see him as like a catalyst just for Naheso's development, even though he's an individual who needs his own development as well. Like for now, even his hair, his mode of dressing, the position he's now in, it shows that he is as well becoming more mature in a sense, which is needed despite the fact that there's a 10-year age gap between him and Nahesu.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I kind of feel like we're in these later chapters. And I've always said this, like I've always felt like, once we get like a little bit of a resolution on, what happens on the relationship with Nahesu and Minchol, I always felt like once that got resolved a little bit, we were going to see like a slight shift in POV, which I'm happy to say that that did happen. Because I feel like like what we were discussing earlier, like the first part of the story was just we were getting like the world building, we were getting to know the characters, we were getting to know like a little bit of their inner dialogue, like what their thoughts, their feelings, motivations, stuff like that. And then we get this like explosion of like drama when Nahesu finds out that, Minchol has been cheating on her, So, and I think now that we finally, like, he's finally found out that she done forgot about him, I'm glad to see that we're seeing more about the Bone family. I've always said this and I still maintain it. I feel like the character of like Teju, like his father, is somebody that you really don't want to mess with. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
he is one of those people that like had to learn really fast, really young, because you can't get in a position like that in that type of organization without stepping on some people, and you can't keep it by being weak. And it was really interesting to me when we got the chapter with the family dinner and then just to see Taehi just like literally like throwing up afterwards. I mean, to me that says a lot about their family. And I'm really like you, I'm really interested to see like, what secrets there are. Like I'm really interested to know about the relationship between Taehi and his mother versus,
Mhm.
Teha and his mother.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm
Take.
so. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go for it. My bad.
No worries. I'm very excited about getting to really tap into Teha's dark side because that's going to reveal a lot about him even, I think, unveiling his past. For a lot of characters, including Nahe Stu, their past is shrouded in mystery. Like even for Nahe Stu, we don't know if her family's alive or not. We don't know if her mother's alive, her father's alive. We get glimpses into the background, but those pertinent details about what makes the characters them, we don't have all of those puzzle pieces together. And we get those puzzle pieces in waves. In Teha, I'm still very shocked that readers are shocked by the darkness that lurks within him, because he's presented himself, with the exception of his first recognition by Nahesu as a person who buys roses. He always had an underlying sinister, or even perhaps I'll just put it as dark, because I don't think he's outright sinister to her. Underlying theme. Dark. He wears dark clothes. His whole facade is hard to read. And let's just be reminded, before he deployed Lee J as his right hand goon, he told Lee J, "Are you ready to bury a body?" So the idea that he was saying that, he's like, "Oh, it's a joke," but it's not a joke. And we've seen in more recent chapters that the feeling that Lee J had, the feeling that Don Wook had when he was, burned by Teha, literally, it's all of it's true. He is willing to do harm to someone who's threatening him or getting in his way. Even Taehi, who has a lot of bravado and has spent a good chunk of their childhood bullying Teha, fears Teha. So this very idea that everyone's surprised that Teha is deadly rather than just a little scary is taking me aback. I'm like, are you reading the same story that I'm reading? Because if you even look in the tags, it says Yakuza in there. So I think maybe it would be worth a reread for people who are confused, and not take off the rose-colored lenses and actually see the story for what it is.
Yeah, it is kind of a dark, gritty story. And honestly, like me personally, that's one of the elements that I enjoy the most about it, is the fact that it's not a typical, like romance. I mean, it does follow like some tropes of like K-dramas, but it's like they follow them, but not really. It's like there's a twist on them that makes them a little bit more interesting and refreshing, in my opinion.
Okay, so I have a question to pose to all of you. Okay.
Sure.
So we understand that, as people, characters are nuanced and they have different sides of them that they reveal to other people. What I would like to know is, who is Teha? Like, who is his true self? We see how Jesus sees him. She thinks he's this innocent kid, that he's sweet and all of these things. Then we see his father thinks maybe he's a little bit crazy. We see that his brother thinks that he's a bit of a monster. There's fear. Lee J is just kind of, we'll just leave him to the side for a bit. But I often wonder if the side that the bodyguard and his family sees, is that the real him, or is it a facade for his survival, and is the real him with Peso?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a bite.
Mm-hmm.
I think the real Teha is the side that he shows to Nahe So. However, he is probably going to show her more sides. What I will say is that I think of Teha as a very dangerous wolfhound who has a master, who is kind to that master and protects that master and will do anything for them. But to others who step into his space without permission, he is deadly. And if you threaten his master, he will obliterate you. The only reason that Minchal is still standing is because if he were to fully harm Minchal, he is scared that that would also harm his master. So that is how I see Teha. He is trying to survive. He does not let anyone know what he is thinking. You cannot tell what's going on behind his eyes because he doesn't. That's actually key to his survival. However, I think he's his most authentic self that he can be in these moments before the truth all comes out. I think that is who he is. And also he's a murderer. So these are all nuances of the thing that makes Teha who he is and how he's been honed by the violence that he's experienced in past and in present.
Okay. Would anyone else like to take that up?
Sure. I got just to piggyback off of that real quick. So I kind of agree. Like I feel like I feel like he is himself with Nahesu, but at the same time, I feel like even that is guarded somewhat. I mean, we have seen that he is very protective of her for obvious reasons. Like, one, obviously he's in love with her. Two, she is one of those people that are like in a high risk situation right now, especially now that we know that she has like a bit of an unstable ex. I mean, I will say that I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen Minchol like come back to try to check on her, but that could be because Ari's got him, by the nethers, shall we say? Like literally probably. But I kind of feel like, he Teha, I kind of feel like he keeps a lot of things like he plays his cards close to the chest. Like I think he does that because it is a survival instinct. Like I do agree with that. And I also think that he has probably never been given the space to explore his emotions and to be like an actual person. What I find interesting is how like everybody knows him, but they don't know him, if that makes sense. Like they know he is a dude, they know he's good looking, they know he's this, that, and the other, but they don't really know anything about him. And we saw like in the one chapter, I can't remember if it was the last chapter, I think it was, where Taehi thought he was gonna play like producer man and show up to his school and just randomly ask people about his brother. So that just goes to show you that everybody knows him, but they don't really know him. And I think that because he keeps things so close to him, I don't think anybody will really ever know him until he feels comfortable to let his guard down. I will say that the thing that I do like about his relationship with Naheso, or not Nahesu, sorry, I I am glad to see that he is starting to be a little bit vulnerable. Um, but it's only in the way that she. How do I put it? It's kind of like he is like that because that's how Na Jesus sees him. Like in the chapter where Minchol came up and tried to start some stuff, she thought when she felt his shoulder shaking, she thought he was crying, but I don't know. Like I just kind of feel like he's only vulnerable when she thinks he's vulnerable because he thinks that's what she wants. And then that's a way for him to get what he needs from her, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Study Bunny, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
I I've always been intrigued with Teja's character because people do say like, "Oh my gosh, he's okay." People say that Teja's a master manipulator. In my mind, Teja has to be at the mercy of someone. He can't just be this all-powerful character within the story who is able to control every single action that can be occurred within the story. And I feel like when I was reading the when I was listening to the chapter 63 recap recording, something that was very poignant that Digital Girl said was that Teja is finally realizing for the first time in his life how much Nahe So's feelings actually affect him. And
Mhm.
it came to the panels that Gaining demonstrated with everything that happened with Minchell, the eyes that Minchell had when he was about to come and attack Teha for a second time and lose, and the threat that Tahi made, and the fact that he knows that Tahi is on the trail. Teha is at the mercy to the fact that he doesn't actually know what to do when his family does find out. Because if this is how if this is how Teha is going to be, or Teha is, when he just knows that Tahi's snooping around, I don't know what his reaction is going to be when he fully is aware that his father knows everything about the relationship. Teju hasn't just said anything because he's waiting for the right time to strike. And people are going to actually really see how vulnerable Teha is in the grand scheme of the Bone family because of Teju. That's what I have to say.
Mm,
That's a
okay.
good point.
It
You
really
know,
is.
it's a good point. I do think that Teha is very calculating. And I keep
Agreed.
going back to one of the chapters where he's confronted by these two girls. He's in the alleyway and they're talking about a coincidence. And he's like, there's
Chapter
no such
11.
thing. Yes, there's no such thing as a coincidence. Behind every seemingly plausible coincidence, there are hundreds of inevitabilities. And I do think that he thinks about the end game, but the in between, he doesn't know how it impacts him until it happens. Even when he unveiled to Nahesu that her husband was cheating, that crescendo where it was finally she was aware that the cheating happened, he was so ecstatic to be like, all right, we're ending this chapter. It's going to be easy. And then he no longer was happy when he saw how it affected Nahesu. It actually harmed him. And he was like, I did not expect it to hurt as much because I was just excited at first for this to be done so that I can start my relationship. And that's a continuing theme where he's like, I didn't think when I confronted Minchial that I would feel this way. And it
There's
continues because he doesn't know. I don't think he knows his own
he
emotions. He
doesn't
doesn't know
he
it.
I agree
he
to that.
doesn't realize the thing is, and I said this, I think I've heard a Reddit commenter say this, and this is something that I realized about Teha. He doesn't actually realize like what the repercussions are to the things that he plans out, especially when it comes to Naheso. He doesn't. I feel like we've been hinted at that Teha is going to either have a mental breakdown or he's going to actually really cry because he's going to be affected by what ends up happening. And the thing is that if there's anybody within the story who's really going to like hammer down on like how badly Teha has effed up everything, it's definitely going to be his dad. Because a man that who has been characterized as cold, ruthless, and unfeeling and basically unhuman doesn't care about probably what has happened in the past, or whatever happened in the past, he has already been able to suppress it within himself. And if he is aware about how his son is kind of acting, then he is going to try everything in his darndest to make his son to be like him and to be able to have his mentality. That's the issue. That's the thing. And I think that's what's the part that's going to scare me a little bit the most. Because of the fact that I do see a separation arc happening in Tears on a Withered Flower later down the line. I don't ever see Naheso going back to Minchol, God forbid. That would just ruin the entire point of the story. But we are going to see Naheso being angry. And even if Teha tries to convince her to come back, she may actually not. And she has every right to do so. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because another question I had wanted to ask a little bit later on when we kind of shift the focus to Jesus for a little bit was um, when she finds out his truth and his true self, what would make her
Mm-hmm.
more angry? Because at that point, she will begin to realize, well, for one, I've been manipulated into believing you're someone you're not. Two, you're a complete stranger to me. You've lied for
Mhm.
all of these months.
Yes.
And now I'm
Mhm.
seeing this person that is unrecognizable. You no longer fit into all of these memories that we've created together. But when I
Mhm.
think of his relationship with his father, the imagery I get is a wolf. Maybe he's like the alpha of the pack and
Oh,
the wolf cub,
definitely.
and he's trying to teach him how to hunt and teach him the ways of doing all of these things. But sometimes with wolf cubs, they just kind of want to play around and do their own thing and make their own mistakes, and they have to learn the hard way. When it comes to Teja's emotional life, the way I see it, I really don't know much about Jables or Jable families, but
Mhm.
thinking about the environment that he grew up in, one, being abused, being neglected, the only emotion that could possibly remain present into his adulthood is resentment, a lot of anger,
I could
wanting revenge.
easily see
And
that.
then, yeah, and then you
On
have to
top
think
of
about what,
anxiety.
yes, that as well. And then you have to think about what he's been socialized within that Chable world. You only see people with a lot of money and a lot of power always getting what they want, always scheming, plotting, or paying people off to get their desires without ever considering how it might affect the other person. So I'm not surprised that he's kind of doing these things with Hey Sue, and then all of a sudden he's shocked, like, oh, whoa, this made her feel this way. It could be one, it's a reminder of how he felt when things were done to him. And two, he's starting to be affected by this woman. Oh, it's not just a crush. I actually like you a lot. Maybe this is love. I want to see you happy. I want to see you smile. I can't believe I did something that would make you cry.
Well, I kind of feel like how can you know how to react to an emotion if you've never really had it? And also if you've never been given the space to explore that. And I know that's something that we
Mhm.
have talked about many, many, many times, like on the Discord and on the discussions. I kind of feel like there's a few different things happening, with Teha. Like, first and foremost, um, I think it's obvious that, there is some we from what we know, we did get a quick flashback that at some point, they met when he was young. It's very obvious to me that in some ways, I think he's trying to use Nahesu to replace like a maternal or nurturing, not necessarily a mother figure, but I feel like he is looking for like some kind of nurturing presence, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And I
Mhm.
think that's why he gravitates towards her. And I also feel like because he is young and he is inexperienced with people, and I hate to put it that way, but if you really think about it, he is very inexperienced with people. Like, the only way he really knows how to deal with people is through violence and threats. And we've seen that in the past chapters. Like, when the guy was, got up in Nahesu's face because she wouldn't pour him a drink. And then afterwards, he went to seek him out and, beat the crap out of him. I mean, we know there was also an ulterior motive to that. And we also know that he doesn't mind putting himself or doing self harm to get what he wants from Nahesu. But I kind of feel like the only way he knows how to respond is through violence and threats. And I think that with his experiences that he's had with Nahesu, you can also tell that he is very like emotionally immature. Like the whole thing when they did, when they had their first time together, when they were the first time they were intimate, um, you know, I don't think he was expecting that kind of reaction from her for like the next day when it was like, oh, you just know this is a physical relationship. I think that Nahesu throws him for a loop sometimes, and I think he
Mhm.
doesn't know how to react to it because he doesn't have the people skills and he doesn't have the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
I
My
agree with that.
there was also a point in chapter 38 where he was just like, "Oh, every other girl would like this too." And his face kind of squeezed a little bit. It was very much like, "Oh, that also hurt him as well," because That
Oh
was
yeah.
actually his first time, and she doesn't know. And I think the issue is depending on how chapter 64, no, we're on chapter 64, right?
Yes.
Um chapter 64 goes, if Heiso tries to retreat again, I think this time Teha will retaliate. Because the thing is that each obviously it's not Nahiso's fault though. It's not Nahiso's fault that she actually doesn't know anything about the fact that Teha was a virgin, that she was actually the first, that he doesn't actually have any people skills to really speak up. Um, and even though people think that this could be easily sorted out with like a sit down conversation and everything, that's actually a lot of stuff to talk about. Like,
Yeah,
what
I was gonna
do
say
you, where do you
that's a
begin?
lot to cover in a conversation.
Yeah.
You can't like, oh, we have to sit down and talk like if Hazel found out that like I was his first, she's probably not gonna forgive herself. And then she has to find out like, oh, because she's gonna easily connect the dots and find out that Teha has been stalking her and has been probably orchestrating some stuff. And then it's like a domino effect. And at that point, there's nothing you can do. But I've
Mm-mm.
said it, I think I said it in the leak discussions and in the deep discussions that even if they don't communicate, it doesn't even matter because they'll be forced to communicate. They'll
Yeah,
have to
absolutely.
communicate eventually. Because when Tahi comes into the fray, when Teju comes into the fray, when Minchel comes back into the fray, and Director Bake, we haven't even discussed about her. We don't even know what her part's to play. I feel like she's like the big bad in all of this for some reason.
Mm.
Um but when they all come into the fray and they start like running amok and they start like making shit shake, they will they'll have to get to know each other and they'll have to communicate. Cause I feel like for Teha at least, the way that the relationship was going before like Naheso retreated and everything like that, it was more or less like a golden situation because for the both of them really, that they didn't have to communicate and get into like the nitty gritty of like what a relationship is, but they were able to eat their cake but be delusional while eating their cake.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that makes
because
sense.
because Hazel really was thinking like, you know, I'm gonna be seeing this guy, I'm gonna be greedy, I'm gonna like, you know, have sex with him, and then I'm gonna be able to leave, but technically did not leave. And it's not because she's being dumb or anything. It's because she believes that like, oh, this relationship is going to end, so I don't have to get to know this man. And then Teha on the other side is also being delusional because it's like the way that he's moving. Lee J stated it himself in chapter 32 that, oh, like the way you're moving, you're going to get caught by Director Big and the chairman. And then what are you going to do? Like, and his conversation to Teha was just like, it seems like you got what you wanted, but it's just actually much more harder and difficult than you thought. Teha is going to have to really deal with the pressure of everything and everybody coming around them and trying to
Hmm.
protect Heiso because he's going to realize that he has technically instigated this entire ticking time bomb of Mitchell coming back, Tahi coming back, when he finds out that Teju knows, him coming into the fray. And there's nothing that Teha can do. Like, Teha cannot take care of everything, and Nahiso's going to find out. And then what is he going to do? What is he
Exactly.
going to do?
You
It's nothing.
know, for a while now, I've been
Mm.
thinking to myself that Naheso has been pretending not to know. Because for a
Yes.
while, as you said before, just building on it, you said that she has always tried to position the relationship as something temporary where she would get tossed aside. One of the things I
Hmm.
do like is that she stopped saying it at least as frequently as she does, because she is continuing to make moves and decisions where she's keeping him in mind. But it's been very much a situation that is not just built and calculated by Teha. It's Naheso pretending not to know, pretending not want to know. And now she's starting to ask questions. And once she starts to ask questions and think back on things, she's going to let everything that she recalls is going to snowball. And that's where we're going to see that confrontation from Naheso on, hey, there's some inconsistencies here. I wouldn't be surprised if, as per usual, Naheso catches him in something inadvertently on a walk where she just sees something and she's like, I'm going to have to, this looks weird, because she's already suspicious, right?
Yes.
So I just want to put that out there that Naheso has that weird ability, the same way we saw that those covers where he's playing cards, he's playing blackjack, and she's the dealer. She is the house, and she usually, if she wants to win, she wins. So
I think that's a very accurate description of the relationship so far. I mean, and if you really think about it, like with the way that cover was drawn, like the cards are like basically she's holding all the cards and he's just trying to guess the right combination, to win. And it's very accurate in my opinion. It's almost like saying that that he knows that she's playing some things close to her chest, like what we were talking about before. But in this instance, we're talking about Nahesu. Like, I feel like she's also another one that doesn't know how to open up to people. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way she's been treated in the past. Like, we've seen that she had an abusive father who was an alcoholic. We don't know much about the mother, but I have a feeling that the mom was probably very neglectful. We saw that she was being bullied at school. So I kind of feel like, with somebody like that, there's a reason why they play things close to the chest. And I think that because he's trying to win her favor, I think, that's why all the cards are in her, I think that's why she's holding all the cards, or at least that's how I see it.
But she's also like, Naito's always been observational. I still think that the conversation they had in chapter 36 was in chapter 35 was it chapter 35? Chapter 36 was so poignant because Teha literally said to her, "Do I look sane to you?" And she said no. I feel like she's aware, but she's playing dumb, not because that's how she is, like she's not aware of the situation at hand, but because of the fact that she said to herself multiple times that, like, oh my gosh, this relationship's gonna end and then it's just gonna be like a fleeting season. But I think that when, based on the covers for 40 and 44, um when it comes to pass of what Teha has been doing, she's going to confront him, but at the same time, she's going to be too emotionally invested in the situation to be able to really do anything about it. And I don't know if it's going to be when we're going to get to the apex of like the Bion family being really into everybody's business, or it's going to be just at the start. And that's only for gaming to really reveal to us, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say for Heisu, this is a very smart woman to me. Like her intuition is very fine tuned. So she can notice the inconsistencies, but I think she's going through this period where she has freedom from her ex-husband and she's now in, let's call it a situationship. But this young
Oh, this
man
is
who is
unfortunate.
willing to give her so much, and she knows she has power over that. I think what she has to reconcile is accepting that she has that power and using it freely. Right now, she's kind of in this like, no, like, let me be independent. Let me kind of do my own thing. No, if I get into a relationship with you, or if I catch feelings for you, or if I want more from you, it's going to be my choice. But then Teha kind of comes in and does it anyway. And then she kind of starts second guessing herself a little bit. But I definitely think she's going to figure everything out. And one interesting thing that I just recalled before we kind of go into wrap up really quickly is that
Mhm.
as much as Teha has lied to Heisu, he did tell her one truth. He was telling the truth when he said that he used to get beat up at home. So
Mhm.
I think when we get to like the apex of their relationship where we have her finding out everything, finding out about his family and this other side to him, when she starts to put those pieces together and think about how could he turn out this way, what might be able to help them heal that relationship or any type of discord that comes out of that will be, you were abused as a child, as was I. So that's where I can kind of sympathize and kind of understand why you turned out the way you did. I had
Mhm.
mental to help get me out of that situation, but you didn't have anyone.
True.
So
Just
I think
barely.
that's something that could help a little bit. But that being said, chapter 64 is dropping tomorrow. What
Yes.
are your expectations?
I
Okay.
expect some back breaking and soul shaking.
Oh my God.
Hey,
But
Right
I
into it.
also,
Yes,
let's be honest,
we
that
gon'
I
see some
mean,
smut. We gon' see
that,
some smut.
that
Sorry, I'm
man
too
ran out
innocent
of the
for that.
car into up some stairs and to her door without
Oh
an umbrella.
I
my.
think it was raining too, right?
it
Yeah,
was
he
raining.
ran in the rain to
Oh
be
yeah.
with the person he really wants to be with. So I do think that's going to be steamy. However, I just think that we're going to see Taehi because Taehi's not in the apartment right now. If you recall in chapter 63, the bodyguard came to let Secretary Han know that Taehi's going to be sick for 2 days. He was not in
Uh-huh.
the apartment when they panned back. He's outside. So we might be able to get a little peek into Taehi's machinations, maybe somewhere familiar. But I think that most of it's going to be steamy, soul shaking, and back breaking. And that's my take.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I know we're gonna get smut, and I'm totally fine with that. I think that we are gonna get like a check-in with some of the other characters. Like I do agree. I hope we don't see Carrot Top, meaning i.e. Mintrol or Mintrash, depending on how you whatever name you want to give him. I'm really hoping that we don't see him. I'm really hoping that like the previous chapter is like the last we'll see of him for a little bit. But I am hoping to see like um so like a check-in with Taehi. I really want to see my boy Lee J. I want to see what he's up to, and I always want to see the chairman. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think we're gonna get a check-in, and then I think we're gonna get some smut. And I think with the smut, we're gonna get some really interesting inner dialogue, like we did the last time.
Steady Bunny?
Okay, so obviously Gainim has like experimented with using less panels for smut but making it intense. So I think we're going to get some intensity. If Gaining wants chapter 64 to be a big chapter, a love confession can be implemented into the chapter to really like solidify what happened in 63 with the whole stalker situation. I do expect us to see the high school crew again. Just because if he does try to look into his high school life, he's going to find out much more information about what's going on with Taeha from the last couple of months from Dongwook and Daehae. If the worst case scenario, if Gaining really wants to fuck with everybody, Minchul comes back into the fray and there's a possibility of them teaming up together or that meeting insinuating. However, because of Secretary Ha's little what is it called monologue and the fact that both sons are not within the company and Lee J was telling Teha that we have to actually go back. I do actually expect Teju to come back into the chapter and not question about where Teha is, but to finally give us some insight into what is happening in his mind with this whole situation when it comes to his son potentially dating somebody. And not just anybody, but a divorcee who's 34 years old. So yeah, because he knows where Naheso lives. Um
Oh yeah,
mm,
it's gonna be crazy. I think for
it's
me,
gonna be a mess. It's
yeah,
gonna be
oh
a mess.
definitely. And I love messy.
Mhm.
My expectation for tomorrow, even if we don't get a confession, I am hoping for Jesus to get confirmation that she is the only one and that he is serious about her. So all
Yes.
of those doubts that she's having,
Mhm.
oh, he's probably with someone else, he doesn't come around often, blah, 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 all of that good stuff. I want her to know and believe and feel it deep within that she is the only one, both emotionally and physically. That is my
Amen,
Mhm.
only
sister.
expectation.
Yes.
Um, and with that note, um, that is basically going to be it for this episode. Ladies, I'm so happy that we were all able to gather tonight and talk about this. And for everyone
Mhm.
Yay.
else listening, on our YouTube channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time.
Yep.
Have a great night.
Link
Bye.
to
Bye.
link to the Discord is also in the description if you would like to join us. We also do a chapter discussion every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So please check us out, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye
Au revoir.
Bye.
bye.